Hello, my name is Maria Luisa Mendiola. I am from Costa Rica originally, and I did my master's at Central San Martins in Applied Imagination. Prior to that, I was working in finance, so I used my master's to transition into the fashion industry. And so when it came to my project, I decided that I wanted to go into fashion design and also wanted to look into body image. Body image affects a lot of women. Around 80% women in the UK say they have an issue with their body, and that's across the world as well. So I decided to focus my project on body image, and as I was doing more research and as I became more aware about my own body image, I realized that one of the biggest factors affecting my body image was the disfigurement that I had in my feet. So growing up in Costa Rica, there were many opportunities when I would be barefoot or I'll be in the beach, and this is a point of contention where I felt a lot of social anxiety about people looking at my feet. So instead of focusing and talking to you, I would be thinking about how I could how could I cover up my feet. So realizing that was kind of the eureka moment where I was like, okay, this clearly is an issue. I need to go head on into this. So this is when I decided to contact Changing Faces UK. Changing Faces UK is an advocacy group here for people with disfigurement. And I got in touch with them, and some of the volunteers I found through my project were through that organization, but the majority of my volunteers came through Dr. Lisa Williams, the head psychologist at the burns unit at the Chelsea Westminster Hospital. Lisa Williams was fundamental in my project because I reached out to her, and she, that same day, was like, can you come in at 4? I have like an hour I can spare. And she sat down with me and really gave me understanding of what the burn community looked like. At that point, for example, I kept referring to people with burns as burn victims, and she corrected me and said, you cannot call them burn victims or burn survivors. There were a lot of information that she contributed to my project, and just kind of me understanding the burn community as a big component of the disfigured community in the UK. She also, this is kind of where serendipity plays a big role in my project, because I wanted to do a project specifically on swimwear, and I casually mentioned it to her, and she said, actually, one of my previous patients contacted me the other day saying that she doesn't know where to get a bathing suit to cover her burn scars, and so because of that, she's not been able to go back swimming since her accident. And that's kind of, again, the second eureka moment where I realized I can be that person. I love swimwear. I can create that swimwear for her. So that's actually one of my first collaborators, was a patient of Dr. Lisa Williams, who I designed a bathing suit for. And the whole idea was to create a fashion collection that somehow the garments would be customized to be aesthetically pleasing, a representation of the disfigurement. So for example, for this collaborator that I just mentioned, I created a bathing suit out of a print that was made out of a photo of her scar. And inside of the garments as well, I put narratives. And this was also a big point of my project. This is where that's why the project is about fashion design and narratives. Through my research, I found out that one of the biggest components that leads to a lot of social anxiety for people with disfigurement is coming up with the words as to why they look the way they do. Personally, that has been an issue for me my whole life, that people would make a comment about my feet and I just would freeze and would make it very uncomfortable. And I think not having the words to talk about my disfigurement really would not only affect my relationship with the person that I was talking to, but also would affect my body image. So all the garments I designed had narratives inside that I worked with the collaborator to put together as to why they looked the way they did. So that when they would be wearing the garment, and if anyone stared or if anyone asked and if they wanted to disclose, they would feel much more comfortable in disclosing. So I'll go ahead and show what each one of the garments looks like, but before that, our masters focused a lot on interventions, and my different interventions were from the first, introduction, where, I sat down with a collaborator and we discussed, anything from fashion preferences, like what garments do you feel more comfortable in, all the way to, what is the reason of your disfigurement? How do you feel about it? How do you feel in your, what would you say is how you feel about yourself physically, emotionally, etc., etc. And so so that was my first intervention, the introduction with them. And then we had a first fit where the volunteers had to, or the collaborators got to try the first sample of the clothing. The second one was a second fit, and for this was instrumental to work with a fashion studio because, as I mentioned, I had no previous knowledge in fashion design, so I worked with a fashion studio, and here the pattern cutter Alice was instrumental because Alice understood my project. She was on board from day one, so she was fundamental in making the collaborators feel as comfortable as possible and really drive home the point that the garments had to fit them and not the other way around. And again, this is a big topic in when it comes to body image. So that was the second intervention. And then for the third intervention, I did a fashion shoot, and you will be seeing the photos from this fashion shoot. And then for the fourth intervention, the collaborators actually got to wear out the pieces. So I'll go ahead and show you what the garments look like and give you some background. So for the first one, she had asked me to, she didn't want a particular garment, but I asked her then, what is a shirt or a piece of clothing that you love? And she said, well, there was this one shirt that I really liked, but it no longer fits me. And so we decided to create a dress that looked a lot like the shirt that she liked. And then this part of the dress where you can see in her arms, so for her, she had burn scars in her arms. And this is actually something where the art garment that she said was her favorite, we combined those two aspects. So, because for her, it was important that she did the choice to disclose how much she wanted to disclose about her disfigurement. So for example, she said to me, I want a dress that's symbolic of my disfigurement, but I choose how much I want to disclose. Meaning, if I'm at work, maybe I don't want to talk about my disfigurement. If I'm out drinking with my friends, or if I'm just, out and about and want to be empowered, I want to be able to open up the seams in the dress here. Not the seams, but the treatment in the shoulder. I want to be able to open that up and talk about my disfigurement. Then for this second a collaborator you see here, she was passionate about swimming, but after she got burned when she was 3 years old, she actually was very self-conscious going to the pool. So at first when I started working with her, she said, I want a bathing suit. Yes, like a print that made out of my scars. She was on board with that, but she was not on board with showing the scars. So she was like, I wanna, my scars are in the back, so I want a bathing suit with a high back. But then this is a very important turning point in my project, when we were in the second fit with Alice, the pattern cutter, this collaborator all of a sudden was like, you know what? And I remember because we had already left the second fit, and she just called me and goes, No, you know what, Maria? I want a big circle, like a big hole in my back. I want to be able to show the scars and show them in a way that it goes from my back to the actual print, and it just looks like a one cohesive piece. Like, I want it to be clear that the print of my bathing suit is my scars. This collaborator has a beautiful story. She since then has created a awareness group for people with disfigurement called Love Disfigure, and she offers swimming lessons for burn survivors. And then lastly, I think for this collaborator, I think the impact of the project was the most important. And this is a collaborator that I had previously mentioned, had contacted Dr. Lisa Williams about not being able to find a bathing suit that covered her burn scars. The majority of her burn scars were in her chest, and that's why it made it difficult for her to find a bathing suit that covered them. And it was the reason why it was so substantial. Her experience within my project was because she had gotten burned 3 years ago, and she had not been back to swimming. And because the fourth intervention of my project was to wear out the bathing suit, she actually went back to swimming with the bathing suit with her 8-year-old son. And so it was just really, that point in my project when I realized I am changing someone's life. And I think that's, the goal of our masters is you're not only changing yourself through the project. Like I had my own insecurities about my own disfigurement, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And now, because of this project, one of the first things that I have to tell you is that I myself have disfigurement. And being able to help these women along the way, it made me feel like I was not only empowering myself, but really bringing together and empowering the disfigured community. A lot of these ladies are still in contact. Actually, 2 of them are in the same swimming group. So it's just been, in that way, very rewarding. I also, for all of my different interventions, I did use pre and post questionnaires for all of my collaborators to answer. And there were 3 important questions that I asked in all of them. One is, how visible is your scar? So that is, that is how you perceive your scar, your disfigurement. How noticeable it is to others. And then the third one is, kind of getting a base measurement of how they were feeling in their bodies and where their body esteem was. And the reason I used these 3 questions was because in my body of research, I had found that those 3 questions were the most successful at measuring changes in body esteem. These questionnaires were in turn assessed by both Dr. Lisa Williams and Dr. Diana Harcourt, who is the co-director of the Center of Appearance Research in Bristol, and she's also the co-author of The Psychology of Appearance. Dr. Diana Harcourt believes that my work has been very innovative in the field, and Dr. Lisa Williams believes that this project was therapeutic for the participants, in this case, the majority, her patients. So that is my project.